Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have Intro to Streaming with Rebecca, who's going to be our instructor today. But before I introduce Rebecca, I do want to remind you that the library is open for grab and go services, which means you can come in, pick up your holds, check out your materials. You can also have up to an hour of computer time. We are also still offering curbside. So if you want to pick up your items curbside, you certainly can do so. And if there are any changes to that, we will put that up on our website, which is champaign.org. And the transcript will get that as Champaign is in the wine, but it's the city of Champaign. So hopefully
We'll
everybody
put it in the chat too.
knows how to spell that too. Yes, and I'll also put it in the chat. So I do want to mention, if this is your first time in Zoom or you need a Zoom refresher, and we do also have a new feature today. So if you're looking down at the bottom of your panel, there on the very left-hand side is where you can adjust your volume and your speaker. In the middle, you have a raise hand function, which allows you to raise your hand and then I'll come and see if you need any assistance with a technical issue. Or if you want to ask a question out loud, you can use the raised hand for us to unmute you so that you can ask your question out loud. Otherwise, you can use the chat function, which looks like a little bit like a comment bubble in a comic book. You can use that to ask a question in the chat, and then I can relay that to Rebecca. Or if you want her to demo something a second time, she's more than willing to do that. You just have to let us know that you'd like to see it a second time. The third thing, which is our new thing, is that now you will see a little box that says CC, and that is for closed captioning, which Zoom has enabled for us. So you should be able to see live transcription happening as we go through. If you don't want to see that, you can tap on that little CC and hide the subtitles if you don't want to see it. Otherwise, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. So I'll go ahead and turn everything over to Rebecca. How are you doing today, Rebecca?
I'm doing good. How are you today, Susan?
Not too bad. So what are we learning about today?
So we are talking about streaming today. Intro to Streaming is the title of our webinar. So let me go ahead and share my PowerPoint. All right, let me know whether or not you can see that.
Yes, I can see the Intro to Streaming services here.
Okay, cool. Let me make sure that, let me get into the slideshow view here. Slideshow.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your video too.
I don't know why it's not going. It's still showing the side slides for you. Can you see that?
It's showing the intro slide, but within PowerPoint.
I don't know why it's not letting me do the.
Are both monitors on?
Yes.
You might turn off the one monitor. Yeah.
I feel like we did this last time and I just maybe forgot that was a thing.
Yes.
Okay.
I discovered that the first time I had both monitors there.
Thank you for the heads up on that one. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So our agenda today, I've listed a couple things we're going to be covering. So first we're going to cover what is streaming. So we're going to define what streaming is. We're also going to talk about cord cutting. So you may have heard of that before. We're also going to talk about things to consider when you're considering streaming. We're going to talk about service models for streaming, providers. We're also going to cover some library streaming services. So you may have heard of Canopy and Hoopla before. I have those pictures up on the slide here. And then we're also going to just touch on some additional resources. And those are links that I have provided for additional sort of further reading after the webinar, and you will be able to get those through the slides that we send out at the end. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the definitions. So what is streaming? So there's a few definitions that I've listed here. One from Cambridge Dictionary has streaming as playing continuously as sound or moving images are sent in a flow directly from the internet to a computer. So that kind of sounds a little complicated, but basically streaming is something that you need to have an internet connection for. So you can stream something like movies, You can stream music, you can stream TV, radio shows. There's a lot of different stuff when it comes to streaming. So streaming kind of talks about the method of transmitting the data. Rather than downloading the data, you would stream it over the internet. So it refers to the delivery method rather than the actual medium itself. And I know that's kind of a little jargony, but we're going to talk more about the practical applications in a second. So if Susan wants to jump in and kind of use her analogy, I think she's an expert on this water analogy, because streaming is kind of, when you talk about it, you kind of compare it to an actual physical stream. So Susan, would you like to jump in on that one?
Sure. So the way I think of streaming from a standpoint of the online streaming is to kind of imagine a river full of running water. So at different points in time, it's going very quickly, and at different points in time, it might be moving a little bit more slowly. But the idea is that it's still continuously moving the whole time. And this is quite a bit like how streaming from the internet works, where the whole time while you're watching something that's being streamed, it is constantly sending data over the internet to your computer so that you can watch it. And if you see the second image here, if you can see the image of the faucet with the water that's dripping, one drip at a time, I use the analogy that the faucet is a little bit like your internet service provider. So your internet service provider, to a certain extent, will control how fast that data is rushing into or filling up that glass of water. So when you go to pour yourself a glass of water, and if you want it to pour very quickly, you're gonna increase the speed at which that water goes into your glass so it fills faster. And if you have a faster internet connection, that is analogous to that glass of water filling more quickly. So the glass of water is basically your streaming content that you're looking for. And the faster the glass fills up, the faster you're able to stream it. And there are other things, outside factors, that Rebecca's going to talk about that will also affect that ability to stream and how fast you can stream. But the general idea is that all of those factors coming together is like this glass that you're trying to fill with water. Okay, so literally, not literally, the idea of streaming, as in streaming online, comes from the idea of a stream, as in a river, and the idea that it's continuously flowing.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Any questions about that? I know Rebecca will get more in detail here in a little bit too.
It'll make more sense, I think, as we go on.
Yes, we do actually have a hand raised. See me just a moment here. I'm gonna go ahead and check and see. Okay, we're good. I don't see it anymore. All right, if you do have a question though, feel free to raise your hand. We'll unmute you so that you can ask your questions.
Yes, main thing is don't be afraid to ask.
Yes.
Okay, so I also touched on cord cutting in the agenda. So cord cutting is when viewers or listeners cancel their subscriptions to their cable provider. That could be maybe their multi-channel cable, their satellite TV, or their radio, in favor of content that is based, like internet-based services. So a lot of people will decide that they want to go streaming rather than spending X amount of dollars per month on cable. And sometimes this also relates to opting for a cell phone instead of a landline phone. So more and more nowadays, people are kind of just using their cell phone rather than buying that extra line. And you may have heard of another term called cord nevers, which was a term coined in 2011 for people who have never subscribed to cable. So people start off and they just buy that internet, and then they just buy streaming services instead of going with cable or satellite. Okay.
Rebecca, we do have another raised hand, so I'm going to go ahead and allow them to speak.
I'm on my question slide, so that works out perfect.
All right. Okay, you should be able to speak now if you'd like. Just might have to hit unmute. Okay. Maybe not. If you can hear us. Okay, we can't hear you, so I'm going to go ahead and if you want to put your question in the chat instead, we can definitely
We
help
can
you
always
out.
circle back to it too.
And we can circle back too, yeah, if you have a question and you want to ask it at the end too. Okay, thank you.
I'll go on to our next slide. So there's quite a few things to consider when you consider going to some streaming services. So really there's no right way to start streaming. You can kind of do your own research and figure out what you want to watch or listen to, and then find the right combination of providers and services for you. And you may also find that when you start streaming, that cutting the cord, i.e. canceling your cable, maybe isn't the right choice for you. So you may end up spending more on streaming than you would on cable, or a combination of the two might be less efficient than you had before. And it really just takes a little research and figuring out what you want, and then deciding what works best for you. So the intention of this workshop is more of an informational workshop and a frame of reference to explore what you want and your considerations for streaming. Okay, so I've kind of listed a couple things here to consider. So you might want to consider what kind of viewer or listener you are. Let me pull up my notes here just so I make sure I'm not missing anything I have that I'm covering. Let's see, come on. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, there we go. So what kind of listener and viewer are you? So do you like to watch certain shows? Do you like to watch only movies? Are you interested in radio or music? And then what kind of content do you want? What kind of equipment might you need to buy to do streaming? And what internet service provider do you have? And what speed do you want? So streaming might mean that you need more speed, or that you might need to switch providers depending on what you want. And those are all things to weigh in terms of costs and services. Okay, and you might also consider when you're viewing and listening, do you like to watch TV shows? Are you interested in streaming sports, news? Do you have thoughts about commercials? So a lot of streaming services offer commercial-free options, including music streaming services, movies, TV shows. And are you okay with catching episodes later? So a lot of streaming services, you can watch stuff live, but some of them are more on-demand services where you'd have to wait until that episode is ready to watch later. What screen size would you like to watch it on? So you may want to watch something on your laptop, but you might also want to watch something on your TV. So we're going to talk about how to do that kind of stuff as well. And where do you want to watch it? Do you want to watch it anywhere, or do you need to be somewhere that has a Wi-Fi connection, like your house, or are you wanting to go somewhere publicly to watch something? Okay. And then you might also consider content. So are you interested in any particular channels or networks? Do you have favorite shows that you want to make sure you are catching? Are you interested in original content, exclusive content? I know, for instance, a lot of streaming services now have exclusive content because they have the rights to certain things. Like, for instance, in the news recently, the show The Office moved from Netflix onto NBC's service called Peacock, and now that's exclusive to that service, so it's only available through them. And then there's also things that have original content, like Netflix has their own original content, Hulu has their own original content. Tons and tons of these streaming services are kind of becoming their own channels and their own like little worlds where only their content is, if that makes sense. So that's also something to consider. Okay, and then equipment is really important when you're thinking about streaming. So you might consider getting a smart TV, or you might think about, do you want to watch on your computer, your desktop, or your laptop? Do you want to watch on your tablet or your smartphone? And there's also, let me see, I have a little slide here of a smart TV and a Roku TV. And a smart TV is, you can get apps for a smart TV where you can stream through those apps. So for instance, you might have a smart TV that can get the Netflix app on it or the Canopy app. And then a Roku TV is a TV, it's kind of like a smart TV, but it's a Roku. And a Roku is a streaming device that kind of consolidates all of your streaming services. So you'll see on that picture there, it has all those little pictures of all the different services. For instance, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, HBO. So there's a bunch of different services that are put into that one screen so you can navigate easily. And we'll talk more about Roku and some of the other devices as well. Here we go. Here's the slide for the plug-in devices. So the Roku TV is the TV that already has that built in. But if you don't have a Roku TV, you can plug in these devices to a TV that has an HDMI port. So for instance, you'll see the Amazon Fire Stick, Google Chromecast, the Roku, and Apple TV. Those are just a couple of the devices that are out there. And again, you would plug that device into your TV, and then it kind of gives you an interface where you can navigate between the different streaming services that you subscribe to. And for me, I have a Roku, and I find it really easy to just jump into my Roku and then navigate between all the streaming services that I have. And I can answer more specific questions too if anybody has a question specifically about any of those.
Yes, we do have a raised hand.
Sure thing.
Give me just a moment. Okay. Okay. Okay, you should be live now if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question.
Where do you plug the Roku unit in?
So the Roku unit has an HDMI port on it, and an HDMI port should be on your TV as well. If you have a newer TV, there's usually one around the back or the side of your TV. And then for me, I have my Roku plugged in through the HDMI cord. So I have like a cord that I plug into the Roku, and then it gets plugged into that port on my TV. And then for my Roku, I also have it connected to the internet through an Ethernet cable. So with some Rokus, you can have it go by your Wi-Fi, but I have mine connected by cord just because I think it goes a little faster.
If anybody wants to know what an HDMI cord looks like, I do actually have one of them up here with me that I can show in a minute too. If you want to see,
I can Google one too and show it on the screen. Hold on, let me.
So basically, it just means that the two ports on either end are both HDMI ports.
Let me get in and share the internet here. Okay, can you see my internet page?
Yes, we can see the library homepage.
So if I just Google HDMI.
You might show what the port looks like and what the cables look like.
It's a really common cable with a lot of TVs. So it looks like that. It kind of looks like a trapezoid where it's slanted on the top and flat on the bottom. And they usually sell them at any electronics store, and you can buy them on Amazon. And your TV should have, if it's a newer TV, it should have an HDMI port around the back or on the side of it. At least mine does.
Yeah, and most of the smart TVs should have an HDMI port as well.
Yes. Now, with some smart TVs, you can get the app directly on the TV and you don't need a streaming device. You can just go into the settings and search for the app and download it to your TV. And that way you don't have to get the separate device, but you may want to check with like your TV's manual and see if you can do that, because some TVs you can't. Let me switch back to that image here. So the smart TV image has those apps there on the bottom. I don't know if you could see my mouse, but for instance, you can go into find apps on your TV and download them. I know my TV does let me download the apps, but I also have a Roku too.
Yeah. Mine has certain apps that I can download, and there are certain apps that I cannot get.
Yes.
So it just depends. You can check with your smart TV for it. You can check with the manufacturer and the model. And you can look it up online to see which ones work.
Yeah, usually you can download a manual online too if you don't have the physical one like that came with your TV.
And
I
someone
hope
else has
that helps
asked,
answer your question.
yeah, someone else has asked a question that's very very relevant to the equipment slide that
Okay.
you're on. If you can plug in Fire Sticks to a Roku TV or a Roku, or how does that all work? Since there's all these different devices.
With a Roku TV, it kind of has that Roku built into it. So it's not a separate device with a Roku TV. So I'm guessing it does have an HDMI port, but I don't know if you would need to then buy the separate Amazon Fire Stick for it. So I would have to look that question up and see if that was the case. But in my understanding of it is if you have a Roku TV already, you don't really need to buy that extra thing. It would be kind of redundant. But again, you might have come into it and you bought the TV and you already had that device. So I don't know exactly what your situation was, but I think that might help answer your question. If it doesn't, I can try to elaborate more.
Okay, thank you. And did we sufficiently answer the earlier question that was posed out loud? If so, I'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and lower the hand.
And there's also antennas you can get. So if you want local channels, I didn't put that on this slide with a picture, but I have a link that's in this slide that you'll get with the slides as well that has some more information about antennas. And Consumer Reports, I think, puts out stuff about antennas as well. So if you want those local channels, we have an antenna that we bought online that gets us like WCIA, WAND, stuff like that. Since we don't have cable and we want those news channels, we have an antenna as well. Okay, let me move on to the next slide unless anybody has any more questions.
No more questions at the moment.
Okay, so it's also a good idea to research and pick an available internet service provider. You also might know it as an ISP. So you might think about looking at online reviews, and then also think about your internet speed. So how much speed you need depends on the type of content you're interested in. So if you stream a lot and you have a lot of devices that you're using, say you have a family of 4 or more, and they're all streaming on all of their devices, you might need a higher speed than if it was just one person streaming on one device. And a higher speed is going to help you prevent lag and buffering and skips. And buffering you've probably heard of before, but buffering is when the video or audio that you're streaming stops for a small or extended period so that it can download more data. And that might make your experience slower or not as great. So you'll notice there might be some like pauses or gaps in your experience. And HD and 4K video do also require more speed. So you might also need to do a little research to decide, okay, if I'm streaming more like higher content, what am I going to need for my internet speed?
Yeah, and HD just stands for high definition. And
Yes.
4K is slightly higher quality than HD. And a lot of TV shows nowadays and movies are shot in HD at least, if not 4K. So SD, which is standard definition, is what a lot of stuff was shot in the 90s and the early 2000s. And then from early 2000s on, most things have been shot in HD.
Yes, I'd say SD is probably not so much of a thing anymore. I'd say most of the stuff that's being broadcast and streamed is HD at the minimum. Okay, and then also when you're thinking about internet speed, you might also come across the term megabits or megabits per second. So that's measured in Mbps. You might see that when you're searching for an internet speed.
Yeah, that's the abbreviation that's commonly used.
Yes.
For what it's measured in.
Okay. Any questions so far?
If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to speak your question out loud, or feel free to type it in the chat and then I can relay it to Rebecca.
And then we'll also do an internet speed demo as well, so that you can figure out what you have at home. Or if you're out somewhere, you can figure out what the speed is wherever you might be connected to.
And this is something your provider might ask you to do when you are testing your internet speed, or you've noticed that it's slower than normal. And if you call your provider and you say, you know, my internet seems to be slower than usual, they will have a specific site that they will ask you to go to do a speed test like this, what Rebecca's going to do now.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and switch over to an internet page so that we can test out our internet connection. So basically, to test your internet, you can do a couple things. So you can either go to your provider's internet speed test website, or you can Google one and go to that. Sometimes it helps to look at a couple different sites just to get a broader sense of what the information is coming through as. So the first thing I might do is just type into Google internet speed test, and that will pull up Google's internet speed test. So you'll see my search there. Do you see that on your screen?
Yes.
And Google has this one that's the first one to come up. If I were to click this blue run speed test button, then it's going to run the test on my connection. So it's going to kind of fluctuate as well depending on who else is on the network. So it could also change during the day depending on how much data is being used. So you may find that in the evening it may look different as it does in the morning. So keep that in mind as well. And it looks like they give me a little kind of brief information about it. It says my internet connection is fast. And then it says my internet connection should be able to handle multiple devices, streaming HD videos, and then blah, blah, blah. So I can exit out of there. I know that Xfinity also has one. Let's see what Xfinity, here we go. Xfinity speed test. So it looks like it's at speedtest.xfinity.com. And you don't necessarily need to have Xfinity to have them do a test for you. And that's the case with any provider, I believe. Yeah. If you just go to their speed test website, they should still test your speed, even if it's not the same one. So it looks like that's 59.8, so slightly different than the Google one. Yeah,
there is a little bit of variance between them. It's also based on where the server is located that they're reaching out to.
Right. So that's, like Susan said, that might be something that your provider asks you to do if you're having some issues with your internet. So that's a quick way to be able to find out what your speed is. Any questions about the internet speed test so far?
It's also, for me, it's something that I do to find out if I am using up most of the internet speed and data in our house, or if someone else is using up more than I am.
Yes.
Which means, again, if you have two people both streaming things at the same time on multiple devices, but on the same network, it's going to mean that the speed may slow unless you have enough capacity for it.
Right. Like, for instance, if I was on Zoom and someone else was streaming, our internet might be a little slower. Okay. And I also wrote speedtest.net is a good site to visit as well if you're interested in doing a ISP test. Okay. And then also there's a few more things to consider, cost versus service. So like we talked about before, you might need a device to make your streaming services work the way you want them to. So that's something to consider. Do you need to buy something new to make it work? Do you need to upgrade your internet service provider? Do you need to upgrade your speed? And will one service provide everything you want to watch or listen to, or do you need more than one choice? So there's tons of streaming apps out there. So it's good to consider how many you need to buy to get what you want. And then how many devices or people do you want to have access? So different providers have different rules and costs. So for instance, I think Netflix lets you have a certain amount of users on one account. and you can share that. Like my dad has an account that he shares with me, so I am lucky I get my Netflix paid for by my dad, and he's so nice to let me have my own account on his account. But also some people split the costs, so I know I hear of groups of people that someone will pay for the service and then share it with other people, and then they split the cost. Okay. Any questions so far?
I don't see any questions so far or any raised hands, but again, just raise your hand if you need to, or go ahead and put something in the chat.
Okay. So I know I threw out a lot about spending money here and there, but there are also some services that are free, some models that are free, such as our library models like Hoopla and Canopy. So there's kind of a different service model for depending on different stuff. So for instance, if you're trying to stream live TV or radio, you might have a different service model than something that's on demand. So on demand means that it's always available on that service and you can play it when you want to. And the live streaming might be a little different because you may have to catch it at that time. I know sometimes with sports stuff, you have to catch it then, or you're going to miss out on that live opportunity to watch your favorite sport or your favorite game. And then with some free stuff, you might find with Hoopla and Canopy that it's on demand, but there are some free stuff that's out there that is live, but it may be only for a certain amount of time. So that's also something to keep in mind as well. And it may not be free for the whole, like say you have the first episode free of a certain season of a show that you're interested in. So keep that in mind that some of the free stuff out there may only be for a certain time or for only a certain amount of the show or something like that, if that makes sense. And many streaming services are subscription based, so you may pay a monthly or yearly fee to access the content. And then also some will allow you to rent content per title. So for instance, Amazon might let you rent a movie for 72 hours for like $4.99. So that's an option as well. You don't maybe have to subscribe to Amazon Prime. You may just want to rent title by title. It really just depends on how you like to watch your stuff. Okay. So I kind of put up a list of some of the providers that are out there. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of every single streaming service. This is just some of the stuff that's out there. I said some stuff earlier in reference to Netflix. There's also Hulu, YouTube TV, Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus. You probably heard a lot of the stuff that's been out there recently. And things are always changing too. So I know a lot of streaming services may come and be popular, but then maybe they fade away and then they change into something or they're no longer available. So keep that in mind that these may not always be perpetually available. And then I put this little kind of chart here that is from PC Magazine, and they list some of the best, what they consider the best streaming services for 2021. And they kind of give a breakdown of what is included, how much it is. You'll see it says concurrent streams. So that kind of means how many devices can stream it at the same time. So I have a link to that also in the slides. You'll get that at the end as well. And again, it's not going to list every single thing, but PC Magazine is really good about kind of consolidating that information so that it's easy for you to research what you want and what you want to purchase.
And I think their list is even more extensive than this too. It kind of goes off.
Yes.
And there's like even more streaming services on it.
Yeah, and it changes too. Like the previous streaming webinar we had looked a little different than this one. I think they rework how they display their information.
Yeah, in fact, I don't remember Curiosity Stream being one that was listed last time we did this, which was what, maybe 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, I think it was in December that we did it.
So
they change all the time. That kind of gives you an idea of how quick and fast these things come through. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Oh, unless anybody has any questions.
Doesn't look like we have any questions so far. Oh, wait, actually we do. What is Peacock TV? It shows us free. Does it mean we can, after installing the app, we can watch the shows?
So Peacock is NBC's streaming service. And when they say free, I think that means only certain episodes are free. So I've downloaded Peacock and I scrolled through it and I remember seeing that certain things were free. Like I know The Office, I think The Office was like seasons 1 and 2 were free, but you had to pay for the service to get access to the other seasons. So
Yeah.
they may have certain things that are free, but certain things that you have to pay for the service for.
And that also brings up a good point about if you have a cable provider, like say Xfinity, Mediacom, whoever you have for your cable, sometimes when you can have access to content that's exclusive to streaming channels, but you get it as a bundled package with your cable provider. So for example, with me, I have, I think I have Xfinity, and so I can get access to Peacock content for free because I have Xfinity and they've worked out a negotiated deal. So it's basically, I can watch things on Peacock that are on demand from Peacock's network. So I think like Saved by the Bell, for example, old episodes of Saved by the Bell are there for free to me, but that's because I have a specific cable provider that
Yes.
has a deal worked with them.
I've heard of that as well. My dad has Xfinity and he subscribes to HBO. So he gets HBO Max, which is HBO's streaming service, for free. So because he pays for that through his cable subscription, he gets the HBO Max for free. That might be something you're wanting to research. And I know that there are different apps for different channels that you have to have your cable provider access for.
Yes.
So you'd have to log into your cable provider and then have it like activate that service so that you can watch stuff. So
And
keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and even to add a little more to the discussion, there are also shows that you can watch live, or versions of them that you can watch the next day on the internet from that particular channel and station. So for example, like the CW allows you to watch the show on the CW online the next day. So not at the time it's airing, but the next day you can watch it on their website. And sometimes you might have to enter in your zip code, so that then they get the data about whether or not you have the cable provider too.
Yes. I've done that before where like I think maybe I watched something through maybe like AMC or something and it asks for like a cable login and you have to put that in before you're able to get onto their stuff online to watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to describe without going through the process, but that happens sometimes if you're trying to watch something through a specific channel's app or website.
Yeah, so some of these things are you're able to get completely independently from a cable provider. Sometimes you can get them bundled with your current cable provider, and then sometimes they're completely separate.
And I think it's important also to say that these things are just so new and they're ever changing. So something that may have existed 3 months ago may not exist anymore. And these cable companies and streaming services are always changing. So this is an ever changing sort of, I don't know how to say
World.
it. It's the world of streaming is it's sort of like the river. You put your foot in, you take your foot out, and it's a whole new piece of water. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Flowing.
Rebecca's grabbing onto my analogy now. Yes.
Yes.
I pulled you over to the river analogy. It is also somewhat turbulent, I would say, just like a river, because the content that might have been there 3 months ago may not be there now too. So we have to keep in mind too that every one of these providers is negotiating the rights to have those movies and those TV shows. and they negotiate them for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
So
So
they
for
only
instance, you might see like an article out there saying like the best new movies coming to Netflix, or the movies that are leaving Netflix next month. That means their rights to stream those movies are going to end at a certain date, and they're listing them there for you so you can see them before they go, or you can look forward to seeing them when they come out, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, but I know this is it's a lot of swirly, if I'm going to go back to the water analogy, a lot of swirly bits of information here. But we do have a resource that Rebecca's gonna
Yeah.
explore that
Yeah,
will
let's go ahead
might possibly
and
help you make a little bit of sense of this based on what you like to watch.
let's talk about Hoopla and Canopy, and then I'll jump into a demo of a service that'll help you kind of figure out what's out there for streaming. So our library streaming services are very popular, and they're totally free with your Champaign library card. So Hoopla allows you to check out 20 items per month. So that could be ebooks, audiobooks, comics, but they also offer music, movies, and TV shows. So you can either stream those titles over an active internet connection, or you can download the titles to watch or listen to later. And that's really useful because maybe you're going somewhere on a road trip and you have those items downloaded so that you don't have to be connected to the internet. And you'll see the checkout times there. You can check out ebooks and audiobooks for 21 days. Movies and music are different. So movies are 3 days and music is 7 days. And then there's no waiting as well. So you don't have to wait if somebody else has it checked out. You can check it out whenever you want. And there's, of course, no fees. And then with Canopy, I'm not sure if it's 10 or 20. I think it might have been bumped up to 20.
It is 20 currently.
Okay, I'll make sure to change that for the next one.
Hoopla and Canopy are both 20 right now because of the situation we're in, and where we were able to negotiate getting more access for everyone right now.
Yeah, so that's really great. We have a lot of Canopy usually is mostly about movies, but there are some TV episodes. And the thing about Canopy is that you have to stream those titles over an active internet connection. So you can't download those like you would with an item from Hoopla. And those items, once you check them out, you can watch them for 72 hours. And it's cool. There's no waiting and there's no fees either. So everything on there is free. And with Canopy also, there's a lot of like documentaries on there. There's a lot of kind of popular independent films. So I definitely recommend checking out Canopy.
And I recommend checking out Hoopla.
I also like Hoopla for audiobooks too. I'm an audiobook nerd. Okay, so let's go ahead and demo this website that is called justwatch.com. So this is going to help you determine what streaming services might have the content you want to watch. So let me get into the internet again. And this is a super, super useful site that I use all the time. I even use it when patrons come to the library and they ask, hey, where can I watch this movie if we don't have the DVD? So it's justwatch.com. I hope you can see that up at the top here, justwatch.com. So you'll see the homepage. It kind of looks like a streaming service. So it kind of looks like Netflix almost, where it has the titles, the title covers, and it has some different subheadings like history, westerns, and that changes also depending on what you have selected. So under where it says movies and TV shows for you, that's where you can actually go and add in what streaming services you have. So say you wanted to browse what's out there, you're looking for a show or a movie to watch, you can put in the different apps that you have, and then you can browse what is out there. So if I knew I have Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus, then this whole front page is going to be catered to those streaming services. So I can kind of browse around. And then if I click on one, it'll tell me a little bit more and where I can stream it. So this one is streaming on Prime Video and Hulu. And it also tells me where I can rent it. So if I wanted to do a one-time rental and it wasn't available for streaming, I could do it that way. I can also search for something. Does anybody want me to search for anything in particular?
If you do, you can type it into the chat.
Yes, type it in the chat and I'll search it.
So if you have a favorite TV show and you're curious whether or not it's available in streaming, or if there's a favorite movie and you want to see it. I have a favorite movie you could try to find.
Oh, okay.
It's called Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. I used to own it on VHS.
Oh, can't be brown. Broken. So you'll see as I type, there's stuff that comes up, but if I click on the title, it should pull up here. So I see it available to rent and buy, but
Okay.
I don't see any streaming service. Does anybody have another thing they'd like me to search?
We have Nomad Land.
Oh, yes. That's a new one. I believe that is an award winner. Okay. So it looks like Nomad Land is available to stream right now on Hulu. And you'll notice under the Hulu app, I hope you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. You'll see it says subs. So that means you'll need to be subscribed to Hulu, and it's available in HD. So then also I can filter it too over here. If I maybe wanted to look at something in 4K, then I could switch it to 4K. And it'll give me more information about how long the movie is. Looks like an hour and 48 minutes, and then just some more information, who's in it, people who also like Nomad Land, and I could click on one, and then it would bring me to the page for that title.
Okay. We have another suggestion of looking up for, it looks like Fatima, Fatima.
There we go. So it looks like, I hope that's the title there. There's a couple of titles with the same name, but the first one that comes up, it's saying it's available for subscribers to Netflix. And what's this other one here? Spectrum On Demand. I think that's maybe a cable provider. And then I can click on it. And what's cool too is I can go in and click on an actor. And then if I click on the actor from the cast, it should pop up with all of their stuff that's out there, and it will tell me where I can stream stuff that has that particular actor in it.
Yes. And we have a comment in the chat that is very good to remember too, that some things can also be streamed on YouTube, especially older stuff that's out of copyright. So some of your older silent movies. There's also the Internet Movie Archive, which has a lot of the older things like the PSAs that were created through the government. If you're interested in any of those things, you can also check out YouTube for some of that stuff.
Yes. And then also at the top of Just Watch, you see the little tabs. It says Home. I'm on the Home tab now, but you can switch it to New. So stuff that's recently come out. Let me delete that off of there. I don't know why that's still searching for Harvey Keitel. But these are some new releases maybe that are on Netflix new releases. So it looks like new releases for the apps that I have up here. So I have Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. And if I click the little plus button, I can add another one. So these are the streaming services that I can add onto my little browsing search. Let me add HBO Max.
Oh, and see, I just noticed there's something called Peacock Premium, which must be Peacock Premium beyond Peacock.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's without ads.
That's my guess.
Some services you can pay more per month to view stuff without ads. Like for instance, Hulu also has Hulu Plus, I think, where it doesn't have any ads in it.
Yes.
So certain streaming services do still have ads. So that's also something to keep in mind. And I know some music services as well, you have to pay more if you don't want to listen to ads. Let me go back to the home page here.
And yeah, we're concentrating a little bit more on the TV side of the entertainment today, but things like Spotify, Pandora, you know, are all internet radios and service providers too that are also utilizing that streaming content delivery system.
And this will also show Hoopla and Canopy as well. So you'll see here with this particular movie I know is on Hoopla. So you'll see the Hoopla one here. I don't know what else is on Canopy that I can show the Canopy one. Do you have one that you watched recently on Canopy, Susan?
Mostly the great course. It's mostly great courses stuff. So I haven't
Let me-
watched. But Ketty, you could try Ketty.
Oh
That's
yeah,
the
let's
cat
try
movie.
that.
Yeah, Ketty the cat movie. Let's see if you can pull that up.
Come on, it's still
Again, they're good
showing
on
my old
documentary things. So
searches.
this movie is about a specific cat on the streets. I believe is it Istanbul? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, there you go.
So this one's on YouTube Premium, it looks like. It should show Canopy stuff, but if you see the little icon, it usually has a K for Canopy, and and if you hover over it as well with your mouse, it'll tell you what streaming service it is. So this one says YouTube Premium.
Can you filter it all by language with Just Watch?
Let's try.
Like perhaps Spanish?
Let me see if I do a search. I'm trying to think of just a search term that would let me maybe sort. Oh, here we go. Filters on the right side here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
Filters. Let me see what it says. It says release year, genres, price, rating, age, rating. It doesn't look like it says a language filter. I don't see a language filter, unfortunately.
Try looking up Run Lola Run, because that's one that's in German. It's older though too, but that might tell us if we get subtitles or anything like that. It might not even be available streaming yet.
That's a pretty popular foreign movie, though. I'm surprised that's not on.
Doesn't look like it. But you might be able to check once if you look up individual titles, you might be able to check and see if they've got, subtitles in the language that you're looking for. Certainly with Hoopla and
here we go. I don't know why it didn't come up in my
Canopy
search.
individually do have language filters on Hoopla and Canopy where you can watch them in their original language with subtitles in other languages.
So this doesn't say that it's any other language. It doesn't tell me if it's in English or anything even. I know it's a German movie, but it doesn't even list on the side here, it doesn't list what language it's in. So that's something.
Just gives you the age rating and the genres and the runtime, and the director.
Let me see if there's any more information. I don't see any sort of allusion to any language that it's in. But it does say original title, so that might be a clue to the language.
Thank you.
Any other questions about Just Watch?
That was a good question.
Yes, very good question, and I think Just Watch needs to consider that.
Maybe we can write them.
We should write them.
And suggest it.
So yeah, I definitely recommend if you have time to just go on justwatch.com and browse around. It's a really useful site when I'm looking for something and I'm like, okay, I'm not at the library right now, but I really want to watch this movie. Is it available on any streaming service that I have access to?
And I can say from experience that I have used this fairly recently to watch a movie that was an older movie that we were just wondering if maybe it was on a streaming service because we don't own it on DVD at that time. It was 7:30 at night and we just wanted to watch it.
Yes.
We were both like, we discovered that both of us hadn't seen it. And so we're like, well, might as well watch it, catch up. And we went on Just Watch to see if it was available through any of the myriad of streaming services that we have access to.
Yeah, we wanted to watch Pirates of the Caribbean, but for some reason, we didn't have the first movie. So we looked on Just Watch and we were like, okay, is there any streaming services that has the first movie? And it's Disney Plus, and we don't have that. We used to have it, but we unsubscribed. So we were like, and then we have to wait to go to the library and get it when the library opens back up. So.
But you can get movies curbside here or come on in and pick them up.
Yes.
And you can search our catalog for them too. And our catalog will also tell you if anything is available through Canopy and Hoopla, the two library services at least.
Yes. So that's definitely something I recommend.
Okay.
And I was shown it to, go ahead.
We've got another suggestion for something to look up.
Oh yeah.
Strangers in Good Company.
Strangers and or in?
In. I-N.
Here we go. Okay, so what's this here? It's giving us a couple of different icons I've never seen before. Let's see what they are.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it's on something called Fandor,
Fandor.
Ovid, and then Fandor Amazon channel. So if I click on one of these, what does it do? Okay, it bumps me out to the Fandor website, where then I can go and check out the movie if I'm subscribed, or I can log into if I have a Fandor account.
You could log into it.
So if I
think you can play
it,
the trailer.
I'm guessing it's, oh, okay.
I think it's the trailer.
I think you're right. So yeah, I think if you click on that icon, and I think this stretches to any other search you do, it will bump you out to the website where you can then get access to it. But what I usually do is I just look it up on my phone, and then I'll go, okay, it's on Netflix, and then I can go navigate to Netflix on my TV and go from there. And I will say that Hoopla and Canopy are both available for smart TVs and for Roku. I have Hoopla and Canopy for my Roku. I think it's probably available on other devices too, but I'm not familiar with other ones.
I was just going to say, for like, if you have an iPad or an Android phone, one of the other things we mentioned under the equipment was a Chromecast. And with a Chromecast, you can cast from your iPad or your Android phone to a TV with an HDMI, because Chromecast just, again, plugs into the HDMI port, and then it works off of the Wi-Fi in your house. So instead of having to watch it on your small phone, you can broadcast it to your TV and then watch it.
Yeah,
so even if you don't have a smart TV, as long as you have a TV with an HDMI hookup, a Chromecast could get you to the point where you can broadcast it from one of your smaller devices to the larger TV screen.
Yes.
So in most cases, there's at least one or more ways that you can access streaming content.
Yep. And the devices range in price too. Like I know Roku has several devices that range in price depending on what you need and depending on the quality of the stream. So I think like the higher end devices will stream the like 4K stuff. And they have little stick sized ones as well, like with the Amazon Fire Stick. So there's different ones out there. And if you're interested, they each have their own website too that will give you more info about them. Okay, let me get to I'll keep going on unless anybody has any more questions about Just Watch or any other streaming device or provider.
No more questions so far.
Okay. So I've also put a list of definitions, some of the stuff that we've covered, and also some of the stuff that you might hear when you're reading or covering anything that has to do with streaming. So this will also be in the slides that go out as well. So you'll see like 4K resolution, buffering, and then stuff about DVRs as well. DVR is a pretty popular term that allows people to record TV. And then I won't go through every single one, but that'll be on the slides as well. We covered most of it when we talked about some of the stuff earlier. And then I have a couple of pages that list some additional resources. So Tom's Guide and PC Magazine have some pretty good pages on some of the best streaming services for 2021, as well as some of the streaming devices. So they actually do some pros and cons about different streaming devices. So I recommend checking those out if you're interested in buying a streaming device like a Roku or a Chromecast. Consumer Reports also puts out a guide to free streaming services, and you can access that article through our website if you have a Champaign card. If you're ever in the library as well, you should have access to Consumer Reports from our computers. And then I put a link to justwatch.com. And then just some more basic stuff about some internet speed tests that you can access and how to watch local, national, and global news online, because those do stream online as well. And some music streaming services. I know we didn't cover too much about music, but there are a couple streaming services out there. You probably heard of things like Pandora, or Spotify is a really popular one. Those are streaming services you can pay for or listen to for free. Some of the streaming services I kind of liken to apps, where you can get the service and you can listen to stuff for free, but if you want extras or premium content or no ads, you do have to pay extra. And then also there's a Tom's Guide article about smart TVs, and then the CNET article that says 100 channels compared. I believe that will tell you what different live streaming services have in terms of channels. So live streaming services, you can actually stream, like for instance, HGTV, Food Network, just different TV shows that are available on live TV. So you don't have to buy that cable subscription. You can buy a live TV subscription, like streaming service. So that's something that you can check out if you're interested in live streaming.
Yeah, it's especially important if you're thinking of watching sports and replacing your cable provider for sports, because each sports channel, like ESPN versus even the Big Ten network, versus, like Fox Soccer or Fox Sports One, they all might have a different individual streaming content place you can go, or they might have things that you can pick a la carte in, say, a sports package that you can
Yes.
get through one of the other streaming services. So that's why it's good to, as Rebecca showed in the beginning of the slides, kind of jot down and plot out what kind of viewer you are, what kind of shows you watch. Do you want to watch it live? Do you care if you're watching a basketball game and you're 3 or 5 seconds behind, somebody shooting a basket? Because if you have enough internet lag, that might be the case if you're trying to watch a basketball game live. So.
And there is a lot of stuff tied up with sports and cable, and I don't know, I feel like some of the sports stuff is really expensive because they want you to buy the cable subscription. So keep that in mind when you do a little of the shopping for some of the live sports stuff, that in my experience, it's a little expensive.
Yeah, I myself have not gone to try to find specific sports channels in streaming networks yet.
I think
But
ESPN and the NFL, I think there's an NFL, like you can buy a package that lets you stream X amount of games. So that's also something to research if you're interested.
Yeah, again, that's something to venture out and research, get out on the internet, look it up, see what people say.
And we can help with that too. So if you need any help with what's out there, you know where to find us, and we can put our contact info at the end as well. Okay, I think that's everything I had to cover. I'm happy to demonstrate something again or go over something again if anybody has any additional questions. And you have my email there. And then Susan, maybe if you want to put both of our emails in the chat as well. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions over email or over the phone. Feel free to reach out if you need me or Susan.
Would anyone like to ask some questions where they can speak their question out loud and have it be answered verbally? If
Yeah,
so,
we
just raise your
had
hand.
one earlier.
Yeah.
Let me go back to.
I'll put my video back on.
Let me stop sharing here.
Do you want to talk about the upcoming workshops?
Yes.
I can do that too if you want.
I was going to say, I don't know off the top of my head what they are. You probably do better than I
do. Most of our upcoming workshops for the rest of this month are Intro to Cloud Storage next week, and then Intro to Google Tools, where we'll talk about Google Docs and Google Presentation, Google Slides, and Google Sheets, which are the answers to Microsoft products and other products that are out there for basically like spreadsheets, presentations
Word
like
processing.
PowerPoint. Yep. And sorry, what'd you say, Rebecca?
Word processing.
Yes, and word processing. And so those are the ones that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So feel free to join us for those again, Tuesday, Tech Tuesdays at 2. Otherwise, and of course, we always have the Book a Librarian program too, where you can reach out to us and have individual time with a staff member. We are doing those virtually right now, so we would do those through Zoom or another platform like this, or even over the phone. And you can always reach out for one of those too.
We're always here to help answer questions.
Yes.
And I like talking about technology, so
Yes.
don't feel like you're bothering us by sending an email or anything.
Yes.
We're more than happy to help.
Did just have a question about live captions, and yes, we are planning to institute that now that Zoom has that integrated for accessibility purposes. We will be planning to have live transcripts from now on for all of our tech workshops, at least. I think the rest of the programs here at the library are also moving in that direction, at least if they're on the Zoom platform. And if, you know, for folks who don't want to see it, they can hide it. So my plan is just at the beginning, we'll say, here's where they are to turn them on. If you don't want them, you can turn them off. So yeah, that will be our new standard. And if all of the videos that are up on YouTube, those do have closed captions as well. And we have gone through and edited things like Champaign so that it's spelled the city's name. With live captioning, of course, we can't necessarily edit right at the moment. So all of the YouTube videos do have edited closed captioning as well.
Yes, I know some of the links that we like verbally say aren't the same when like with live transcription or anything. So it's helpful when we have it on YouTube, because then we can go in and really cater it to be exactly what we want it to be.
Yeah, because if we say champaign.org/book-a.
I actually tested it today, and it's now champaign.org/book-a-librarian without any hyphens.
Yes, we did take those out because it was easier to not have to say hyphen, you know, hyphen.
Yes.
So we made it a little easier, and we have some redirects now. For those of you still here who want sort of a behind the scenes knowledge bit, that is, we're trying to make some of those a little bit easier for us to say and for you to type in and everything. So
yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And again, I'm happy to demonstrate anything again if anybody would like to see anything.
Yes, and we are absolutely trying to work toward as much accessibility as we can. So if you have suggestions for further accessibility that you'd like to see, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do. And again, we
also have that feedback form too.
Yes, with the follow-up email, with the follow-up email, we'll send both the link to the video that will be up on YouTube, as well as a link to a feedback form if you'd like to fill that out for us, as well as any questions that were asked today. We can put in more refined answers if needed.
Yes.
So, all right. And this one came in at a pretty good time, so we weren't too far over time today for what we try. All right. Any other questions or comments? Again, you can always reach out to us if you'd like.
We're going to say that. Yep. I was just going to say the same thing. If you think of a question after the webinar is over, feel free to send us an email.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, before we say the same thing again that each of us was going to say, why don't we go ahead and we'll end the webinar, and we'll say thank you to everyone for coming and joining us, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.